Hello Georgetown, I'm Beverly Enos and this is Spotlight Georgetown. You can find us Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Now if you'd like to become part of the cable TV, we'd love to have an audience when we do the tapings. And that's always on the bulletin board so that you know when we're going to do that. If you would like to come and learn how to run a camera or do some editing, or if you would like to learn how to do that and then borrow a camera, you're welcome to do that too. Just let us know whatever you'd like and we'll make you part of what's going on in Georgetown. Now today we're talking to Arlene Zaft and she's going to be talking about the Women's Resource Center in Haverhill. So welcome Arlene. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Bev.
Now you're not from Georgetown.
No, I'm not.
You're from
Haverhill.
So you're from Haverhill and you're married there?
I'm married, yes.
And how long have you been in this area?
Gosh, I've lived here about 14 years.
Okay, that's a good long time.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to be talking about the Resource Center, so we'll be talking about what programs it offers and things like that. How did you ever get into this line of work? Is this something that you trained for or just had, it meant something to you, or what got you started?
All of the above.
Okay.
My first husband was a batterer, so I'm a survivor of domestic violence. And I was very friendly with one of the board members of the Women's Resource Center, and she thought that I would be perfect for this kind of job. So I did the training, and I started as a volunteer. I would do the hotline, and also my house was a safe house, just for overnight. If the police called and we had to go to the police station, pick up a woman, she needed a place to stay overnight till we could get her into a domestic violence shelter. She and her children would come to my house. So I volunteered for about a year, a little more, and a position came up as a domestic violence advocate in the Haverhill office. And I applied for it, and I got it, and over 20 years later, here I am.
And your title now is?
Domestic violence advocate.
Okay, still.
Among other things.
Among other things. Now, exactly what is the Women's Resource Center?
It's an organization that's been in Haverhill for over 30 years, and we help women who are victims of domestic abuse.
What kind of programs do you actually offer for these women?
I just want to mention our program. We are now a program of the YWCA in Haverhill, and
that's where the office is?
And that's where the office is. We have many services for women. We do crisis intervention. We do one-on-one domestic counseling. We have a weekly support group for victims. We do legal advocacy. We have somebody at the Haverhill District Court almost every day helping women get restraining orders, giving them emotional support.
Usually you.
Usually me. We will go to probate court on occasion. We have a program with Merrimack Valley Legal Services for victims who qualify financially to get them free attorneys for probate court. We work very closely with DCF, Department of Children and Families, and welfare, and all the local agencies who also work with victims. We work with them, we help the victims work with the agencies. We can put a woman in a domestic violence shelter if she really needs to get out of the area. We do outreach, we do education. We work very closely with the local police departments. Our catchment area, we serve women in Haverhill, Bradford, Georgetown, Groveland, and Boxford. And that area also comes under the jurisdiction of the Haverhill District Court.
Okay, so the court itself covers those same towns?
The same towns.
So you cover those
and we
women
cover those
and
towns.
Children and families?
Yes, yes. We don't have direct programs for children. The Y does, but the Women's Resource Center doesn't. But we work with, there's a wonderful program in Lawrence that helps children who are victims of domestic violence, and we work closely with them. We refer women to bring their children there.
Now, what is the connection between your agency and the YWCA, other than you're housed in their
We're
building?
a program of the Y now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're
All
a
right.
program of the Y.
So, as part of what the YWCA puts on, part of their work is your work, or your work is part of the YWCA. You're in conjunction.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
In the past few years, have you seen changes? There's so much more education, and people are talking about it so much more. Have you seen a change in the feelings of it being a stigma to the women or the children or the spouses?
On the whole, I don't think society looks at it as though it's a stigma anymore. Obviously, there are victims who still feel, stigmatized by it. But no, there has been a lot of education, which is wonderful. The police, the judges, even the clergy, there's so much education out there, and there's so much awareness of domestic violence. When I went through it, there was no such term as domestic violence, and there were no restraining orders. We now have restraining orders. There's just so much more out there for women, and so much education.
And years ago, when there were restraining orders, basically it was a piece of paper.
Well, it's still a piece of paper. I mean, if your batterer is that dangerous that he does want to kill you, he will. A piece of paper won't stop him. But for the most part, restraining orders do help you.
From what I've seen, the changes in the last, let's say, 10 or 15 years, the police departments are more on board with it.
Well, they're getting more training.
Right.
They understand what victims are going through. It's very hard, as you know, for a victim to leave. And people still ask that question, well, why doesn't she leave? She must like being beat up, or, and it's not true. It's just so difficult. It's not a matter of just leaving, taking the kids and going. They've been so emotionally put down, they don't have the emotional strength to leave, or the money, or they don't know what's out there for them, which is one of the reasons I'm so happy you invited me here today, because, they need to know that Women's Resource Center is out there waiting to help them. There is help out there. Our services are all free. They're all confidential. We have Spanish-speaking advocates. We have a lot to offer them.
I was watching a movie recently, and it was basically this whole idea. And when the woman finally left, she didn't know what to do and where to go and how to get a job and how to live on her own. So this is something that you help with.
Right. I mean, domestic violence is all about power and control, which is why,
Why it continues.
Why it continues, they want to control, the batterer wants to control their partner, and they do that, through all kinds of, when you say domestic violence, women think, I have to have a black eye, I have to have a broken bone, he has to have punched me. But that isn't true, because, the emotional abuse, and the name calling, and the put downs.
And the separation from family.
Right, the isolation, these are the things that really are worse than the physical abuse. They really are, Now,
we're in Georgetown, and people think, okay, in a town like Georgetown, this couldn't happen. This couldn't happen in towns like Boxford or Groveland or Georgetown. Mm-hmm. This is a city thing or an inner city thing. No? No.
Okay. Right, it's the thinking that it's usually with the poorer people, the uneducated people, and that's not true. I've helped emergency room nurses, I've helped police women, I've helped all kinds of women. It makes no difference where you live, how much money you have, what your education is. It cuts through every socio-economic. Anybody can be a victim of domestic violence. Anybody.
There was a training that I was a participant of one time, and they said sometimes the families that are actually more affluent, it's more difficult, because not only does she lose the spouse, the house, the kids, the lifestyle, the private schools, the everything that the kids were used to having, as well as she was used to having, it all goes poof.
Right. Well, not only that, it's harder for a woman whose spouse is very well-to-do, or is a lawyer, a doctor, a policeman, a fireman, somebody who has clout, who's well-known in the community, who's highly thought of, and she figures, who's going to believe me? You know, that he abuses me. Everybody thinks he's great, everybody thinks he's wonderful, and of course they are to everybody else except their victim. So it's harder for a woman like that to leave sometimes, much harder.
Yeah, and especially when there are children involved.
Definitely.
You know, it's one of those mothers always protect the kids.
Right, right, right.
Georgetown has what's called a rapid response team.
Oh,
Can you
yes,
explain
they
that?
do. Yes.
We're one of the few communities that have it.
You are, and it's just wonderful. We work very closely with that team. It's a group of women who are trained in domestic violence. They're volunteers. They're on call 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and they work very closely with the Georgetown Police, and they're domestic violence advocates, and the police call them in, and they work with victims in Georgetown. And as I say, they work with us. If they know a woman needs our services, they'll tell them to call us, or if they know a woman is going to the Havel Court to get a restraining order, or her batterer was arrested and is going to be arraigned, they'll call me and give me a heads up, so we definitely make sure there is an advocate there and we look out for her. And it's a fabulous program. I wish every police department had it. It's truly wonderful.
When I interviewed the chief, he explained that the advocates, of course, they are 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, but when the courthouse closes, women really don't have any place to go to file a restraining order. But the domestic violence, the rapid response team can do that with the police department.
Right. Any police department can give a woman an emergency restraining order when the courts are closed. Of course, that order is only good till the next day the court is open. So, for example, if she gets one on a Saturday, she has to be in court on Monday morning to renew that,
and
continue
quite often
that order.
Somebody from the Georgetown team would be able to be with her, and if not, it would probably be you.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
a familiar face is always nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, what kind of training did the advocates go through? Is it all different types of? Is it a one-day thing, or is it an ongoing?
You mean what I went through, or what the Georgetown advocates?
Yes.
No, I think it used to be when I went through it. It was close to 40 hours of training. Close to 40 hours of training.
So there's a lot of education and role playing and learning the laws.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because now they have the harassment orders, and so you have to learn about that. It is. It is.
Can you give now normally a restraining order, a 209A style restraining order, and that gets filed with the court, and people can actually go up and file it on their own. They can go to court during court hours and just actually file it for themselves. Well, or they can go through a police department.
Well, in Haverhill, we have a restraining order clerk. So you would go into her office, and she would help you do the paperwork.
And then if the court is closed, it would, of course, be through the police department.
Right, exactly.
And that would be primarily for domestic violence. So it would have to be a spouse.
It has to be somebody you're related to by blood or marriage, or have had a child with, or are married to, or divorced from, or you were in a dating relationship with. There has to be some kind of relationship there. Whereas
the harassment
orders, you can get that. That doesn't have to be a relationship. You can get it against a landlord, a neighbor, your boyfriend's ex-girlfriend. You can get it against anybody, really, anybody.
But it's not something that you can just walk in and say, I want this. There is a process that goes with it.
Well, there have to be 3 incidents of harassment.
That are
first
reported?
Of all.
Reported to the police department, or
Well, it helps if they're reported to the police department, but I don't think necessarily. I don't think necessarily.
Okay, so
The thing that's good about the harassment order is it includes victims of sexual assault, because most sexual assault victims don't have a relationship with the perpetrator. So they were not able to get a restraining order, which was really too bad, because there was no relationship there. But with the harassment order, they can, because there doesn't have to be a relationship.
and that's again through the behavioral court.
Right, right.
Okay. Now, if someone wants to become part of this rapid response team here in Georgetown, how would they go about that?
They could call the police department.
Okay. And I know that quite often you're always, in fact, collecting telephones? Cell phones?
Yes, for women who don't have a cell phone. This is for just for emergency 911 calls, but we do. Yeah.
And I don't think that everybody understands, as long as the phone has a charge,
Right.
even though it doesn't have a service, even though it's not hooked up to Verizon or any of the services available,
Right.
you can still press 911 and it will go through.
Yes, you press 911, you get the state police barracks in Framingham, you tell them, you know, this is happening, this is where I am, and they will immediately put you to the local police where you are. And it happens very quickly,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So,
And now, even for people not to do with domestic violence, let's say an elder or somebody that just needs help, same thing. As long as you've got a cell phone that has a charge, you can call 911.
yes, yes, absolutely.
I know, I don't think that's as understood as it could be.
Right, right. Well, there's a program, SafeLink, that I've seen on television that does give phones that have so many minutes on them. I don't know exactly what you need to do to qualify to get that phone, but
But that's something, if they call their local police department or council on aging or selectman's office or something, they'd be able to make a connection somehow.
somehow they would, right.
Now,
Correct.
does the resource center have a website or
You can just call the Y, ask for me, or tell them they want to speak to somebody about a domestic violence problem, because as I say, you know, they don't have to give their name. It can be totally anonymous if they're not comfortable saying who they are.
So if somebody wants to just call in and talk to someone, they don't have to give their name or they can just
Absolutely
just call
not.
in and talk to someone.
They can just call in and talk, and a lot of women don't want to, and that's fine. You know, we respect that. It's very difficult, even making that first phone call, you know. So as long as they call,
And the phone number?
uh,
The behavioral phone number.
the Y number.
Yeah.
978-374-6121.
Okay. 374-6121.
Yeah.
Okay.
think
All right.
that's
We
it.
just wanted to make sure.
I never call it, so I have to think about it. So I hope I didn't get it wrong.
Is there anything else that you want to cover with this? I know it's a subject that's not the most pleasant, but it still needs to have the information out there.
The information does need to be out there. I think if anyone knows somebody who is a victim, or they think they're a victim of domestic violence, just let them know that you're concerned for their safety. You're really concerned about them. Let them know there is help out there, you know, for them, and that, you know, they're willing to stand by them.
And I think sometimes that's what it takes. It takes a friend.
It takes a friend, it takes a clergy, it takes someone, a nurse in a doctor's office, somebody, you know, that they feel comfortable talking to. That's all it takes.
Now that's funny, because over the last 5 or 6 years, I've noticed anytime that you go to the hospital through the emergency room, one of the first things they do is close the door and say, "Do you feel safe at home?"
Absolutely. Even I know when I go for my yearly to my gynecologist, there's a question on there: are you safe at home? You know, because there's so much more awareness now that doctors, hospitals, they're all asking those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were
that's
talking
good.
actually when we were setting this up to do the taping that I've seen notices of phone numbers to call in ladies' restrooms in restaurants.
absolutely.
Or in bars, places that people would congregate.
Right. I've put things in restrooms. I've put things in my beauty salon, different places like that.
Places
Yes.
that the women would
The
be going.
women would be going to,
Yeah.
and right.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming. It's not necessarily the nicest thing that you want to talk about, but it is important that we get the word out.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Beverly.
So if you know someone that needs help, let them know that the Women's Resource Center is there in Haverhill. And I'm Beverly Enos. This is Spotlight Georgetown. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Bye for now.